Hey guys! In making this video, I will be assisted by these balls known as gravity balls, aka moon balls, as well as a young helper. Many of you know what these balls can do. Their main difference is that they're incredibly bouncy, hence the name moon ball, which is a hint of the moon. Of course, they will not fly to the moon, but they bounce great. And thanks to its shape, it often has an unpredictable bounce. So stuffing it like a soccer ball is almost unrealistic. Now let's test its bouncing capabilities. Compared to other balls, we will throw from the same height: a bouncing ball, a golf ball, a tennis ball, a gravity ball, and a basketball. Each ball will fall from a height of approximately 2.5 meters. For this, we will need a stepladder. We specifically chose a brick background to make it easier to navigate the height of the bounce. So, first up is basketball, one of the presumed favorites of this competition. Bounciness is one of its main features. The basketball sets the bar pretty high. We didn't expect such a strong bounce. Let's make a note and move on to the ball for tennis. This one was quite weak. Next up is the bouncing ball. Now let's see if it can live up to its name. Against the tennis ball, it's excellent, although it doesn't have as high a bounce as the basketball. Next up is the golf ball. Better bounce than the tennis ball, and thanks for that. And now the gravity ball. Its bounce was slightly better than the bouncing ball, but it definitely lost to the basketball. Although given the overall size and weight category as a toy, moon ball wins over the sports projectile. It is at least more comfortable to hold in the hand. Before we move on to the second experiment, a little preparation for the third. Let's leave the gravity ball and bouncing ball in the cold for a few hours, right on top of Misha's alibi guard box. For the next test, we'll need a 16-pound kettlebell. Let's check how each of the balls will withstand the impact if, purely accidentally, a weight is dropped on it from a height of 1 meter. And first up will be the outsider from the last competition, the tennis ball. The ball is ready. The kettlebell can also be dropped. We thought the ball was going to burst, but no. It bounced off to the side like nothing happened. Just look how it was flattened on the slow-mo. Although no, it was not without injuries. After a detailed inspection, we found a small crack in the seam. Now let's look at crushing a golf ball. We've got a small dent on the floor, so we put the ball in its place. Wow, that's quite a fight. The kettlebell sprang back so hard that it did a somersault. And the ball doesn't care. It's designed for heavy loads. Bouncing ball. It's its turn. This rubber ball was pinned to the floor very hard, but no injuries. It's getting hotter. It's the basketball's turn to meet the kettlebell. Who do you think will emerge victorious in this duel? Let's see. Another flip of the kettlebell, and the ball doesn't seem to notice the increased stress. Almost all the balls were landed on by weights, and we already know how it ended for them. It remains to do the same manipulation with the gravity ball. What is stronger than the spring properties of the ball or the kinetic energy of the kettlebell? We put the ball in the hole and get ready to drop the kettlebell. And again, the kettlebell does a somersault, which has already happened during this experiment. Just look at how the ball is pressed into the floor. This is probably the flattest result to date. Moonball's not just good at bouncing, he's also good at tossing weights. We thought a kettlebell would help us find out what's inside this ball. Well, if it doesn't, a knife will. Let's find out what it's made of. It's not too hard to cut, by the way. I thought it would be harder. And what we see inside is a kind of foam rubber. It's probably a special foam rubber, which can be deformed when pressed. So despite its size, the gravity ball weighs the same as a bouncing ball. And by the way, here's how the new gravity ball looks, just taken out of the package. And here it is after a month of use. It's hard to tell that it used to be green. Against the new one, it's incredibly different. Wear-resistant, it certainly cannot be called. Moreover, it even lost a bit of its bouncing properties. It bounces off the floor not as vigorously as its new counterpart. By the way, gravity ball and bouncing ball stayed in the cold longer than we wanted them to. It's all the more interesting to see how the frost of -10 affected the bouncing properties of both. Wow, gravity ball stopped working. Against bouncing ball, it doesn't bounce at all. Now let's compare the frozen moon ball and the one that was lying warm. The conclusion that this ball loses its properties in the cold was only confirmed, but the frozen bouncing ball bounces as skillfully as the moon ball lying in the warmth. It was not affected by the frost. For the next experiment, we will take old, worn-out futsols that we are not sorry to upgrade. We will make them a new sole, made from halves of a gravity ball. Such halves will need 3 pieces, so we will have to cut 2 more balls, one old and one new. To fix the halves on the sole, we decided to use 2-sided tape. But it turned out that because of the structure of the ball, this method did not justify itself. We should have checked earlier. Behind the scenes, we picked up the most optimal variant. Good old thermal glue. Apply to the ladles and bring the construction together. In total, we got such a bouncy shoe. Let's move on to testing. Unfortunately, the problems did not end with gluing. This shoe is so old that the foot outgrew it long ago. With great difficulty, Gleb managed to fit into them. What you don't do for likes under the video. So everything's ready for testing. Let's jump. Literally, the first test and one of the halves fell off. Manufacturing defect. The sole in one place is very worn and there is no traction. I had to improve the fastening and continue the experiment. Having completed a few rounds with the chips, we can draw some conclusions.
Jumping in the shoes is easy. It feels like I'm on springs, but it twists my foot and I'm afraid not to twist my ankle.
And now on to ball work. Here we will leave the video without commentary. And you yourself can compare how much easier or more difficult the exercise is performed on the modernized sole and in shoes with removed half spheres, moonball. The second exercise is to develop the feel of the ball. The conditions are the same. In general, such an update will not help soccer, but for experimental purposes you can play. Actually, for this, gravity ball is designed. That's all for now. Bye-bye.